Traders, how are you? Marcello here, founder of the Day Trading Academy from beautiful, beautiful Hong Kong. One of the tallest buildings here in Hong Kong. We're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. Raquel, how do you say it in Chinese?
早上好.
早上好, traders. Amazing time here in Asia. We got our Filipino traders set up. For those of you guys that are listening on the podcast, remember that the podcast is available on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere you guys listen to the podcast. Definitely go and watch either my Instagram or YouTube to be able to go ahead and see the amazing view that I have behind me. It's the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Since I travel so much, I built up the miles, and now I can stay here to motivate you guys to see these amazing views. Setting up a few trading centers here in Asia. We started in the Philippines, went to Malaysia, now we're in Hong Kong doing some business. We're gonna go to Singapore tomorrow, and then after that we'll probably be heading back to the week. Back of the week we'll be heading to Miami and then to Colombia. The U.S. benchmark overall this week, the markets essentially took a dive on Monday, right? Had its worst month in May, the S&P 500, after reaching a record high. We had a 6.5% fall in May. The Dow fell under 25,000 again this week, sustained a sixth weekly loss, which is the longest slump since 2011. NASDAQ is now officially in correction territory. We obviously had that situation this week where Trump and the government of the United States said that there's been some reports, that's how they say it, right? There's been some reports that they're going to start investigating a lot of these big technological companies. So the NASDAQ dropped 1.6% on Monday. Now it's 11% off its highs from the beginning of May. U.S. stocks had their second best day of the year, 2019, on Tuesday, rallying as hopes of a few reports of an interest rate cut took hold. Obviously, the fears about trade are still there. Markets rallied again on Wednesday after, on Tuesday, the Fed suggested that they might cut rates. And then on Thursday, the markets surged as well after saying that Mexico is ready to deploy 6,000 troops to the Guatemala and Mexico border, giving reports that they may be willing to go ahead and acquiesce to Trump's demands, because remember, he said that he was going to place tariffs on the country if they don't help with the migrant problem. Illegal migrant problem, I should say. U.S. stock indices did rally this week at the end of the week, right? So remember, they went down on Monday, then they kind of recovered because of all the news that I told you guys as well. The Dow moved back up above 26,000 on Friday, breaking 6 weeks of declines, 5% gain. S&P 500 and NASDAQ are ending 4 weeks of market losses this week as well. They're up 4.7% for the NASDAQ, 4.3% for the S&P 500 respectively. It's the best week of the year for stocks. And an analyst at a company called Nomura says that the market swings right now feel very similar to the months before the implosion of Lehman Brothers that set off the 2008 financial crisis. So warns that this omnious pattern is developing in the market sentiment, and this could point to deep losses ahead. So overall for the week, the Dow up 4.71%, the S&P 500 up 4.40%, the NASDAQ up 3.88%. Overseas market news, very similar as well. Many of the global stock markets slumped on Monday because of the drawn-out trade war. Also, China says that it's not going to back down from the trade war. And 2 days after signaling that it could backlist foreign firms from the huge market in China. Because of this, a lot of traders went into the 10-year treasury bonds and precious metals as they went up as well. If you guys saw the video that I did on YouTube about how I'm trading at the moment, the silver more than anything went right down to the area that I was looking for. So definitely, I think I might do an update to that video. If you guys want that, let me know here in the comments. I'll be happy to do that for you. Global markets headed again higher on Tuesday and Wednesday on news that loose monetary policy by central banks are coming. European markets are mostly higher, with the Paris CAC 40 down 3%. That was the biggest loser for the week. Istanbul is up 3.55%, biggest winner in Europe. Latin America, the Merval in Argentina went up more than all at 5.05%. And one of the losers, the biggest losers, the index in Santiago went down 0.53%. Africa and Middle Eastern markets, South Africa, biggest winner, 4.40% positive. Nigeria down 2.09%, the biggest negative. And in the Asian and Australian markets, the China SEC is down 2.51%, the biggest loser. And the markets in Thailand were up 2.1%. Big news in the crypto space. Facebook is announcing that its cryptocurrency this month is going to launch. They're going to allow users and even employees. They're going to allow employees to take currency, take their payments, their salary in the new currency, and users are going to be able to store, trade, and exchange the crypto for regular currency. And Bitcoin losses for the week minus 4.92% negative at about 7,942.26. This is part of the reason, guys, why I've always told you that it's not Bitcoin, it's blockchain, right? You guys can see. Who's to say, Bitcoin still has the biggest majority of the market cap of people using, for example, cryptos. But Facebook now is going to launch theirs. Who's to say that Facebook isn't going to take the majority? You see what I mean? And obviously, since a lot of these are cryptocurrencies, they act like currencies like the US dollar. They can obviously affect the value. So a government tomorrow can launch government coin. Who's to say that might be the next actual world currency that we're going to use? You see what I mean? That's why I always tell you guys that it's not about the cryptos. It's more than anything about the blockchain. Financial news. U.S. banks are warning investors that we have growing recession risks from a trade war. That says Morgan Stanley. The global recession going to start in 9 months if the U.S. imposes 25% tariffs on the additional $300 billion of Chinese exports. China retaliates, says Morgan Stanley, and JP Morgan is saying that the probability of a U.S. recession in the second half of 2019 could go up from 25 to 40% in the latest swing by central banks trying to revive their domestic economy, since the overall global economy isn't doing that well. Australia lowered its key cash rate to a record low of 1.25%, and India's central bank Thursday dropped their rate as well to 5.75%. And that obviously is the lowest level in 9 years to try to get the economy back on track in India. Global investors are continuing to flee to safety in the U.S. government debt. They drove the 10-year treasuries down to 2.08%, the lowest level in 2 years. The decline has led a large yield curve inversion. Remember what I told you guys about what some say is an indicative of a recession, when the short-term rate of the U.S. Treasury bonds, the federal government debt, goes up, and the longer-term debt, like the 10-year or the 5-year, invert, meaning that the long-term debt interest is lower than the short-term debt. That's called an inversion. They invert the interest rates. That means that we may, some say that that's an indicative of a recession coming up. Economic Commission concluded on Wednesday that Italy now is in breach of the EU fiscal rules because of the growing debt problem. They're saying that they're going to start disciplinary action against Italy. And the European Central Bank saying that it might go lower into negative interest rates as global trade tensions grow. For all of you guys watching from Europe, since I have a lot of you guys from Germany and Norway and London, the UK, imagine putting $100 in the bank, because this is what negative interest rates are. Imagine putting $100 in the bank, and at the end of the year you have $96 instead of $100. Literally, they take away your money instead of giving you money, right? Even though interest rates over the last few years have been quite a bit. There are other things that we can invest in to be able to go ahead and provide actual return on our money, rather than literally giving away our money to quote unquote the government and the bank. So definitely look into that, because we might, especially you guys in Europe, right now the economy is doing okay, not great, even though some people want you to believe that, but you guys already have pretty low interest rates. So imagine if you guys go full negative. I mean, what, you're going to go negative 5-10%? You're going to put $100 in the bank and then lose the money at the end of the year? So look into other opportunities, because it's definitely coming. Oil is closer to a bear market collapse as major U.S. banks raise the specter of a recession. Saudi Arabia tried to reassure investors that OPEC will avert the supply glut. U.S. oil prices plunged back into a bear market. Obviously, this is because of the economic fears and the supply glut put together. The crude oil futures for July, the U.S. crude went up 1.12%. International Brent, which is the price of international oil, went down 1.75%. Gold on Wednesday had its highest level and longest win in over a year. Prospect of a rate deduction by the Fed amid signs of economic weakness in the U.S. combined with support in buying bullion. Precious metals for the week, gold went up 2.68%, silver went up 2.8%. In political news, Merkel's hold on power is becoming increasingly precarious. The ecologist Greens, who came in second place in May's European Parliament elections, also affected the UK elections, right? I think I mixed those two topics together, but you guys get me. So Merkel's hold on power is starting to slip because of the elections that were held in Germany. And then also the ecologist Greens, who came in second place in May's European Parliament elections, hit a record level of support. And now Merkel is just 1% behind. Let me start that over because I completely butchered that. So Merkel's power is becoming much more precarious. The German ecologist Greens won a record turnout in the Thursday political poll, and it puts them 1% behind Angela Merkel's conservatives. There we go. See, third time's the charm. Denmark is the third Nordic country now to form a leftist government. A lot of people are rebelling against the austerity measures to blow in more conservative nationalists. New premier promises more increase in welfare spending, but it's going to be tough on immigration. In economic news, U.S. private sector jobs growth in May was only 27,000 versus 180,000 expected. It's the lowest rate of creation since March 2010. The U.S. economy does seem to be slowing further, providing impetus for the Fed to be able to go ahead and cut the interest rates soon. So remember, they were talking about increasing them last year, then they weren't going to increase them, and now they're actually thinking about lowering them. U.S. jobs report for May also comes in below expectations at 75,000 instead of 185,000. The global manufacturing is its weakest point since 2012 in May. And the casualties of mounting trade tensions and further reason to worry that the world economy is starting to slow. Manufacturing in the UK also shrinks by the most in 3 years, almost 3 years. There's a lot of indicators from Europe as well. The economic slowdown, leading economy Germany, which is the if I'm not mistaken, the third or fourth largest economy in the world. I'll look that up here in a second again. They had a dismal 3.7% plunge in April exports. It's the biggest drop in almost 4 years, alongside a 1.9% contraction in industrial output. So now the forecast for the German GDP has been halved to just 0.6%. In trade news, due to the diversion of trade flows, Vietnam emerges as one of the big winners in the trade war between the U.S. and China. They gain near 7.9% of its GDP from the new business. Other winners are Argentina, Malaysia, Chile, and Taiwan. Speaking of Taiwan, the United States and China, or I should say China, is a bit, pissed off because the United States is starting to look for arms sales with Taiwan. And if you guys don't know what that situation is like, according to Taiwan, they're saying that they're an independent country, but according to China, they say that Taiwan is a rogue territory that should be still part of China. So China doesn't like U.S. messing with Taiwan, especially militarily, because there's some speculation that Taiwan thinks, or they say that China is going to do a ground invasion to take them back. So the U.S. is supporting Taiwan and its independence. Mexican officials are seeking to persuade the U.S. government to hold talks by U.S. Vice President Pence on Wednesday. They're saying that their government has done enough to stem immigration and avoid the tariffs that are going to go in effect next Monday. Mexico is going to reject a U.S. government idea to take in all Central American asylum seekers raised in the talks this week. In technology, speeding up its 5G launch, China is licensing major state-owned mobile carriers, and they're starting to roll out the next generation networks and granting licenses. The FCC in the United States, the Federal Communications Commission, is rolling out, they're voting on Thursday to give the U.S. wireless carriers the authorities to block unwanted robocalls automatically for customers, to be able to go ahead and stop spams and a lot of theft that happens to millions of customers. In investment news, Apple's annual developers conference known as WWDC begins on Monday in California. This is where they're going to preview a lot of new software, overpriced iPhones with not a lot the same technology, right? Right, Raquel? Because my Samsung takes better pictures than your iPhone. Other than that, oil giant Shell is anticipating to spend $125 billion on dividends and share buybacks between 2021 and 2025. BMW and Jaguar Land Rover on Wednesday are saying they're going to jointly develop electric cars. Toyota and Subaru are also going to joint develop an electric SUV to split the cost of making a lower emission cars. And the deal that was speculated between Fiat Chrysler and the French automaker Renault from combining and creating the third largest car maker in the world has been stopped due to they say, French government interference. Nothing like more government interference. And U.S. pursuing more than $2 billion worth of tanks, weapons, and sales to Taiwan. That's what I was mentioning earlier. And obviously that very made China very angry. Russia and the U.S. blamed each other for a near collision from two East Asia water warships on Friday that basically almost collapsed. Russia blames the U.S. U.S. blames U.S. blames Russia. Russia blames the U.S. as usual, just finger pointing. In Venezuela, the population, 12% has left as refugees or migrants. Socialism. Socialist paradise. That's what the government said it was. It was a socialist revolution. That's what they called it. For those of you guys that love socialism, that's what it ends like. 4 million refugees have left and gone into other countries. And in unusual facts this week's 28-year-old Justin Sin bid for the record $4.57 million to have lunch with Warren Buffett. He has created the 10th largest cryptocurrency in the world. As of 2017, it's worth $2.56 billion, called Tronix. And him being an entrepreneur and a pioneer in the crypto space, Warren Buffett called Bitcoin probably rat poison squared. So it's going to be interesting to see how they, what kind of conversation they have. An out-of-control cruise ship ran into a dock and tourist riverboat in Venice, reviving calls to not allow the ships into the Venice waters anymore. Amazon's Jeff Bezos, richest man in the world, is buying 3 apartments in Manhattan at a deal valued at $80 million. He's buying the penthouse and 2 floors under it, because the penthouse obviously wasn't enough. Arabica, that's how you say it in Spanish. Arabica coffee futures plunged the most in 9 years in New York, rallying in the past 2 weeks. Fundamentals are still largely negative for higher prices. Don't forget, I got Amalia. We're going to start producing coffee. Best coffee in the world. A New Jersey house belonging to the Sopranos sold for $3.4 million. The property taxes alone on the house are $34,000 annually. And Uber is testing a helicopter service in New York City that's going to allow people to pay between $200 to $225 for the service called Uber Copter, and it's going to start on July 9th. Let me show you guys the view here in Hong Kong. So you guys can see the beautiful harbor bay, Victoria's Harbor. Hong Kong, if I'm not mistaken, means smells like a harbor in Chinese, isn't that right?
Yes. The city of the harbor city.
Say it in Chinese.
Haigan Chen.
Haigan Chen. The airport is right over there. We're going to be leaving tomorrow. And I always like to show you guys these kind of views because I think it's absolutely amazing to be able to travel around the world, experience new things. The sun is coming out. Hope you guys had an amazing week. It's going to be another amazing week this week because obviously the markets, there's always an opportunity. So I wish you guys the best. Let me know if you guys have any questions. #AskMarcello. See you next time.
再见.
再见.